Hi everyone, the devil here. Yes, I know, it's been a long time. But I'm back, another episode of The Devil Show. Today, I want to talk about abortion. And how conservative Christian thinking creates more problems than it proclaims by having a position of pro-life. Now again, as the devil, I think all of this is good. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out some obvious hypocrisy about pro-lifers. And it isn't an argument about, well, geez, then you shouldn't be in favor of proliferating guns, or you shouldn't be in favor of the death penalty. But you are, and those are hypocrisies. But I don't mind that at all. I mean, that's fine. You can be hypocritical to an extent. I mean, again, all of this works for me. You know, the more you insist that you stand in moral authority, and yet you continue to judge others and be unforgiving and intolerant and full of hate, the more hell on earth is going to continue. So I have no fear of that. And I even have no fear telling you the truth and giving you a perspective you may not have thought about with regards to pro-life. But, what the heck? I give it a shot. So the pro-life argument, meaning we have to protect the life inside the mother's womb, is so cherished, so sacred because of the potential for so much in a newborn child or a newborn baby. That all sounds great. Supposedly that's a similar argument to the euthanasia, that we want all of our people that are infirmed or terminally ill to continue living without some kind of mercy killing, because life is so sacred and beautiful that maybe, we should let a miracle happen and preserve the old life. We don't want them to die in dignity or on their own merits, because euthanasia really is murder, or euthanasia really is suicide. We can't let anyone do that because life is so sacred. And that's it. That's why this is so funny. I mean, it's so clearly not so sacred. God has not made life so easy for you and so beautiful for you that you can say something like that life is beautiful and sacred. I mean, you really can't say that. I mean, I think it's beautiful, but my perspective is kind of warped. I mean, this has been just the kind of challenge. God creates this good and evil option, and Jesus really is the biggest advocate I know of good living, of choosing good. And of course, I'm the symbol of evil, so those choices are available to every human being. But the irony is that what Jesus promoted, and that was his non-judgment, forgiving, embracing love to garner peace on earth, those values Christians don't follow. They just don't. I mean, they try. Maybe some good Christians do follow that. But if you have a conservative, social conservative, pro-life, political position, then you really aren't. You're really not a Christian. I mean, come on. That's pretty obvious, right? So, I'm just pointing out that, I know, because this is fun for me. You got to understand that I get to say the truth, And it will fall on deaf ears because, after all, the devil is telling me that I'm not a Christian. How insulting is that? It's true. But your pro-life stance is full of hypocrisy. Because clearly, the baby that's inside a mother is far more valuable than the mother, and is far more valuable than when the baby is born. Because of this sort of ethereal or, God-like sense of sacredness that the baby is inside the mother's womb. So that's somehow okay. You don't have to be compassionate to the mother. You don't have to feel the mother's life is sacred. And you don't even, and then once the baby's born, you don't have to feel that the newborn baby is sacred. It's just now part of life. So there's nothing of value on the level of the sacred to embrace with the newborn. But if you were a Christian, you might think otherwise. Because your idea as a Christian, because this is what Jesus is telling you, is that you're not supposed to judge creation or the nature of humanity. You're supposed to forgive our qualities and ultimately love all that God has created, including the mother who is desperate to figure out a way to deal with the baby inside her. And what do we get from Christians? Pro-lifers? Nothing but condemnation, threats. We're going to get mom in jail. And he says, oh no, we don't say that. No way. Yeah, you kind of do. All the judgment and ridicule and the sense of self-superiority, this notion that you have this moral authority over the mother's child is so, I find it all beautiful. Because the hypocrisy is so palpable. It's so intense. My life, my job as the master of evil is never going to be threatened. Never. So you good Christians continue to condemn mothers who get pregnant out of wedlock and then become so fearful, no matter what the situation is, whether the mother was raped by a family member or somehow made to have a child she was not ready for. And you can show no compassion for that mom because, after all, you're not really a Christian. Because you don't really have that kind of compassion. You don't really have that kind of sensibility to be loving towards somebody in the situation of a mother who has to decide the fate of her child. Now, if you were a real Christian, not a fake one, just espousing all of this sense of superiority about your moral superiority, you're so devoted to the Word, the literal Word of God, that you completely ignore Jesus Christ's value system. Because you don't have to. You can say all those things. You can sound like you're Christian and you're all holy and you're all religious. But, when you really look close, I get it. You're not really a Christian. You're just kind of faking it. Which, in my book, absolutely guarantees the continuance of evil. It's just beautiful. I love how you can twist all of that goodness. Because at the time when I met Jesus, he kind of freaked me out. I thought, wow, this guy was really onto something. He actually could make it so that evil would stop existing and I would end up in eternal hell. I would have to go to hell. But I really was being a little foolish. My faith in human nature is that people will find evil far easier to do than good. They just give in, and they can, because evil just takes a reactionary quality. Something happens, you react to it in fear, in hatred, in ignorance. So that's why evil will still continue. We have no fear of that. So the issue of pro-life is that you're not really pro-life. You're just pro-life with this overly romantic or naive or, I don't know, hopeful sense of the newborn within the mother. That you completely forget about the mother. And what's worse is you forget about the baby once the baby is born. You have no concept of what you can do for the newborn child. It's too late. You couldn't possibly provide mother who is with child, some real options. No. You have to get all political and all clever about how you can shut down all of these abortion clinics because because of the sanctity of life you hold. Hysterical, very hysterical. That's funny stuff, man. Now, you should be making clinics, pro-life clinics, where you actually give mothers real options. You help educate them. You help them find a job. You help them establish themselves as a young mother. And then once the baby is born, you actually help the mother raise the child. But no, that doesn't concern the pro-life believer. They're not going to waste money on some mother who got herself knocked up, probably fornicating with some sinful man. Sure. Blame mom. You have no compassion at all. So that's why people have to hide their pregnancy. And if they do get an abortion, oh my God, they certainly don't want to be condemned by God-fearing, Jesus-loving Christians. No. We don't want to risk their condemnation. Well, I'm here to kind of condemn you. No, I'm actually here to praise you because your evil way, your twisted hypocrisy about pro-life is by far the most compelling example of subtle evil that I've ever encountered. It's really incredible to think you are a vehicle of God, that you're a devotee of Christ, and yet you do the absolute opposite of what Jesus would want you to do. You completely lack compassion. You completely lack the idea that you can provide a mother with a real choice for life. See, pro-life doesn't really work in an anti-abortion environment. If there are anti-abortion laws on the books, everybody just goes into hiding. They just go away. So you'll never know if you're being effective using the power of your love of Jesus. Because you won't know. So your real effectiveness, if you really want to be like Jesus, would be to offer pro-life in a pro-choice environment where people actually could choose life. But you don't want to do that. No, you want to send people to jail. You want God to send them to hell for all eternity. Well, I'm here to tell you that you're the ones that are probably going to go to hell.